Greetings, comic book fans. I'm Danny Danger, and for those of you who have been keeping up with what I'm reading, I just finished the entire Sandman series, and of course, it's just not enough. So I have been exploring the vast world of what else there is to read in the Sandman continuity. The very first thing I read was Lucifer. I knew from the very beginning it was the book that sounded the most interesting to me, and I'm right in the middle of the big collected edition book number 2 right now. It's really good. It's the story about what happens to Lucifer after he just resigns his responsibilities to hell and opens up a piano bar in LA. For those of you who watch my pull list, you know that I'm also reading the current Dead Boy Detectives run because, well, I mean, I enjoyed the first Dead Boy Detectives run so much. I mean, come on, that's Ed Brubaker. What's not to love? I already read Sandman the Dream Hunters, which is a very romantic and tragic tale about a fox who falls in love with a selfless monk and saves his life. It's a really sad story, but it's absolutely beautiful. So now all I have to do is read Sandman Endless Nights and the Sandman Book of Dreams. Hi, Olivia. Do you want to be on my video? Oh, you're covered in mud. Oh, you have so much mud on your face. So the next 2 titles that I'm going to recommend aren't specifically Sandman additional reading, however, they will help enrich your endless reading experience. Hellblazer is a series that follows Johnny Constantine. As my good friend Nolan, who also works at Austin Books and Comics, pointed out to me, Johnny Constantine does not appear in Sandman Volume 1 first. It's not his first appearance. It was actually in Swamp Thing. However, Johnny does help the Sandman find his bag of dream sand, and it's a really unforgettable, awesome story. So Hellblazer sort of goes right along in with that universe. The problem with Hellblazer is that it's not numbered by volume, so it's really hard to get into for the very first time. So you can read it one of 3 ways. You can go to the publisher's credit page and just look at the date and sort of organize your collection based on the date and read it all in order. Most people read it by the author. You know, Garth Ennis, particularly his run, has gotten a lot of praise. Or you can just read it in whatever order you see fit, which I've never seen anybody do. So if you do, tell me how that goes. There are 2 other Johnny Constantine-centric titles that go along with the Sandman universe that are single issue. The first one is Love Street, which is about Johnny growing up in the 1960s. And then there is The Sandman Presents Marquee Moon, which was totally completed and completely written, but for some reason never released. You can only read it online. WTF, Vertigo Comics. The second honorable mention title is actually something that I read a few years ago, only the first volume, but I really liked it and for some reason never picked it up, so I'm really excited for the opportunity to reread Sandman Mystery Theater. For those of you who don't know, the Sandman is actually a very old DC Comics hero whose primary weapon is a gun that shoots sleeping gas. And Mystery Theater is sort of a film noir story about him fighting crime, solving mysteries. In Neil Gaiman's Sandman universe, Wesley Dodds, who is the Sandman hero, makes a couple of appearances in The Dreaming, and the Endless Sandman makes several appearances in Wesley's dreams. This is so confusing, they have the same name! My god, it's like 3 girls named Brittany. The 2 finally meet in Sandman Midnight Theater, which I haven't read yet, but once I finish Mystery Theater, I will. Some other Sandman titles that I want to read: The Dreaming, which is, a story about the dreaming, the land of the dreaming. It starts off with Goldie running away from Cain and Abel because, I mean, who wants to see their master get murdered over and over and over and over and over and over and over? What was I talking about? For those of you out there who are Fables fans, you'll be excited to know that Bill Willingham wrote several Sandman universe spin-off titles. One of them is Merv Pumpkinhead, Agent of Dream, where he gets to go all James Bond to save the dreaming, which is awesome. He also wrote Everything You Want to Know About Dreaming But Were Too Afraid to Ask, and 2 limited series that are my absolute favorites, or about my favorite witch in the story. The first one being the Thessaliad, which I have not read, and then Thessaly Witch for Hire, which not only have I read, I own all 4 issues. Bill Willingham signed my number 1, and it's a rare comic book gem for me because I am a huge, huge, huge fan of the art of Tara McPherson, and she does very, very few comic book covers. And this series, she did covers for all 4 issues. I'm also really eager to read Mike Carey's The Furies and God Save the Queen, which is a story about a battle between Queens Titania and Mab. Those fairies, man, they are vicious. I always end up reshelving God Save the Queen at the comic book shop, and it's one of those covers I just stare at it. I'm like... If you're like me and you are a huge fan of Jill Thompson's art, you should be sure to check out the Little Endless Storybook. I feel like Jill Thompson was sort of Lilling before Lil was the cool thing to do in comics. She also wrote Death at Death's Door. Again, check it out. I have a few books in my own collection that are Sandman accompanying titles. My stepdad is actually an auctioneer, and once he came across this massively huge collection of comics, like I'm talking like 40 to 56 or so long boxes, and I got to go through all of them, which took me until about 4 in the morning. I got 2 of the Death titles, so I've got Time of Your Life and High Cost of Living. And one of my favorite things that I found in the Death titles that I got was Death Talks About Life, which is actually a really awesome couple of pages where Death talks about AIDS and the importance of having protected sex, which I feel like, I don't know, this is actually kind of a treasured possession of mine. That collection also included Destiny, a Chronicle of Deaths Foretold, which I haven't gotten around to reading yet. And then I got several different galleries. I got the Endless Gallery, I've got a Death Gallery, and then sort of Dreams and Nightmares, another gallery. And then somewhere floating around the heap of mess that is my desk and stuff I have to read, I also got the Sandman Special #1, which features the Song of Orpheus. I haven't read any of these titles that I picked up. Have you read them? You should tell me down below in the comments if anything I managed to snag is just wonderful. Last but not least, the reviews on this book are not very good. I don't have very high expectations, but I would read a comic written on toilet paper about the Corinthians. So I'm definitely going to pick up the Corinthian Death in Venice. It's a story of when Dream was captured and the Corinthian ventured out into the world. Venice, early 20th century, learning how to kill people. I mean, come on. There's a little bit of awesome there. There's gotta be. Have you read The Corinthian Death in Venice? Have you read any Sandman spin-off titles? Do you like them? Do you love them? Tell me down below in the comments. I am so into Sandman right now. It's crazy. Let's talk. Also, Mommy Tard, I wanted to let you know we are still working on our Sandman fan cast. It's so hard. I want to make sure that I get everybody right. However, your suggestion for Tilda Swinton's Desire, it's pretty solid. I've had a really hard time finding anybody better than that so far. Even though I'm not filming at Austin Books and Comics today, I do want to do a special thank you to them in this particular episode because Brandon over at Austin Books is actually the first person who got me to read Sandman so many years ago, and it's one of those life-altering, changing titles that you really are obligated to thank the person that showed it to you. So, thanks.